So, top stories today. Don Lemon is screwed, apparently. That's tonight's top story. So, if you haven't heard, he basically accompanied a group of protesters. He says accompanied for, he claims he was doing an act of journalism. I'll kind of play the video here as we go, though. But he accompanied yesterday, this happened in Minnesota. He was with a group of protesters that stormed a church. Let me make this bigger. Yeah, so they stormed a church. This is the full video. Things got super rowdy. They were actually yelling at the churchgoers to get out, like basically telling them to leave the church towards the end of this video. But in any case, the assistant attorney general has caught wind of this, and she's saying today that Don Lemon is going to be charged with a felony. Don Lemon himself. And she's mentioned he's going to be charged probably with, it's called the KKK Act or the Klan Act, as well as the FACE Act, which, I mean, I got to be real, I've never heard of them before this news. But I looked him up a little bit. So what it is, let me kind of pull it up here. Very loud, sorry. This is the FACE Act, the first one that she's referring to here. So my understanding of the FACE Act, I can kind of read it here, but I guess it was originally started to protect people's civil liberties because, you know, abortion is legal in the United States. So I think it was originally, related to abortion clinics and basically trying to prevent people from coming and blocking women's access to abortion clinics, okay? But it also applies to religious institutions because I think it basically touches on the 14th Amendment and everything. So it says here, it's Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act of 1994, right? The highlighted part here is what it applies to like religious institutions and stuff. It's saying that you can't intentionally injuring, intimidating, or interfering with, or attempting to injure, intimidate, or interfere any person by force, threat of force, or physical obstruction, exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, okay? So you can't intimidate, right? You can't interfere. You can't cause a physical obstruction, which when you're watching the video of these guys in there, it looks like they're doing all of those things. Basically intimidating the churchgoers, telling them to leave, all that sort of stuff. Now, this has been used by the Biden DOJ in previous years to arrest, let's say, a group of pro-life people, post up outside of an abortion clinic, pray. Those people can actually be brought up on charges with the FACE Act for interfering with somebody trying to enter a clinic, right? What the Biden DOJ has also done is they've coupled the FACE Act with something called the Klan Act. Now, the Klan Act was brought about because it was shortly after, I think it was in like 1870s or something like that, right after the slaves were freed. Basically, there were some southern states, Democrats, if you didn't know, who weren't complying with the new rights of said freed slaves. And so they had to create an act, it's called the Klan Act, which basically penalizes anyone, that's what she said. I couldn't tell if it should be a that's what she said or a that's what he said. We'll go with that's what she said. But anyways, it penalizes anybody who's essentially conspiring to interfere with the civil rights of someone, right? So that would apply to slaves, but it's also been used in conjunction with the FACE Act. So for instance, what the Assistant Attorney General is essentially saying with Don Lemon is like he's going to be probably charged under the FACE Act initially, right? But a lot of the times when you charge someone under the FACE Act, it just ends up being a misdemeanor, right? So you can then also add on charges from the Klan Act, basically saying like they'll look at their cell phone records, this group of protesters, they'll see, did they conspire ahead of time to do this? Did they coordinate? Did they cross state lines to create a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of these churchgoers, right? And that can help upgrade the charges from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act plus the FACE Act, right? So this is what Don Lemon's facing right now. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know how sticky these charges are, if they'll actually hold and, you know, he'll get prosecuted. But these are the same acts that the Biden DOJ has used to prosecute right-wingers, protesting outside of abortion clinics, right? So theoretically, they can be used exactly in this type of an instance. It is just super funny, though, that Don Lemon, the first black gay KKK member, first of all, charged on MLK Day under the Klan Act. He hasn't been charged yet, I should clarify. The Assistant Attorney General has just come out and explained the charges. I'll actually play a little bit of her talking about him here so you guys can get some context.
In this case, I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes may have occurred? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Did anyone cross state lines to do this? All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
Harmeet, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is a act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an affinity to the FACE Act, an obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act, because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of
statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet some used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge.
So that's the Assistant Attorney General there explaining how the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. Now, did Don Lemon is contesting that he was actually a part of the protest. He's basically claiming, no, I was just documenting it. I have questions, first of all, as to how Don Lemon even got there in the first place. The Assistant Attorney General actually brings this up later in the video, but she says that they're going to be looking into who funded the protests to begin with, which I think is a very good question to ask, because I don't think this just sprung up out of nowhere. I think it's a very obvious provocation towards conservatives. It looks very staged. Like, let's ramp up, let's escalate things, let's get Don Lemon in there to friggin' film it and put it on his show. And it worked. You know, it was all over the news for an entire news cycle. But I don't know that Don Lemon anticipated being charged. So, in any case, he claims he was just documenting the protests. Here's Don Lemon thanking so during the protests, there was a guy, I'm going to call him Crazy Beard Guy. Crazy Beard Guy was like yelling at all of the Christians in church towards the end of the video. I'll kind of play a little bit of it here. Here's Crazy Beard Guy.
See what happens. Hey, you are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are you? You're sinners. You're pretending to be Christians. But we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy to a man wearing a suit is a preacher. Did Jesus the people stop? Out now. Out now.
You can actually hear him shouting out now at people, which is particularly egregious when it comes to the FACE Act, because he's actually telling people to get out of the building, right? Totally intimidation and obstruction, all right? Now, here's Don Lemon thanking Crazy Beard Guy for his service after the protest.
The uniform now, you think they're patriots?
I don't think so, especially those ICE agents.
That's
no,
what I'm talking
no.
about. Yeah. Well,
No, they're terrorists. They're traitors.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Today we had the honor to protest.
Thank you for your service, as if they are military veterans. So that's Don Lemon there. Here's the opening of Don Lemon's show where he acknowledges that he's aware that they're about to enter a church.
To Minneapolis a little bit ago and did some reconnaissance on the ground, speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this, when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we're like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? Saw the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up, and it's Takima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here, and then we're
holds them to account, he says. So he's very aware of what they're about to do. He's not notifying authorities, right? He's basically a co-conspirator if they're all being charged with conspiracies, right? At least that's what a lot of people are saying. I mean, it looks like he's clearly supportive of the protests. You know, he calls these guys resistance fighters. He says that for a second they looked MAGA coded, which is a weird thing to say. These people are weird. Dude, everything in their world is like, you know, they hear dog whistles that apparently only Democrats can hear for white supremacy and MAGA and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so there's Don Lemon, aware that they're about to storm the church, supportive of the protesters. Here's crazy beard guy telling he's heard about the charges today. He's telling Pam Bondi to come get him.
Yesterday, I went into a church with Nakima Armstrong, and
Good that he just openly, everything's documented, and I particularly appreciate the captions.
Protested these white supremacists. A pastor of the church is a fucking ICE leader in the city. How can you...
I'd like to know more about that, actually. I haven't looked that up too much. But what's the deal? Why does this guy keep saying that the pastor is like an ICE agent or an ICE leader? I don't know what that is. I'll try to look it up for tonight's show, or for tomorrow night's show, sorry.
You be a fucking pastor and be a fucking ICE agent. Fuck them. They want to come after me? Fuck them.
Yeah, but this is the whole thing, right? Like, why are they doing these crazy things? Why are they being so vile? Because they believe that they're righteous, right? You can justify almost anything if you believe that you're righteous. Ironically, the actual Nazis, I'm sure, believed that what they were doing was righteous, right? They were saving their country. They were eliminating what they viewed in their time as being the MAGA people of their culture, right? The opposition that was destroying their country, right? It's a righteous thing to do. They're just clearing them out. This guy, same attitude, right? You know, F the pastor, F the church. They're all white supremacists. It's about dehumanizing people so that you can take these types of actions without having any kind of moral guilt about it. Feeling pretty good about it, actually. But I can tell you Pam Bondi is going to come for this guy. So, yeah. Not looking so good for Crazy Beard. Nicki Minaj just still with the funny tweets. I guess she was calling out Don Lemon today. This contains some bad language from Nicki Minaj, by the way. The tweet, but here's her tweet towards Don Lemon. You can see it down here. Just goes off on him.
tweet about me. I usually don't respond to this stuff, but let me just say this. Nicki Minaj, stop talking about shit for which you know nothing about. This is out of your depth, by the way, and you are a homophobic bigot. You don't care about African Americans, and you're not an African American. From what I know, you are reportedly an undocumented citizen, so you should be deported under Donald Trump's rules. And the other thing is that your family members, you have one family member who is reportedly a sex offender, the other family member, your husband or whatever, a sex offender is your husband, and one of
This is going off.
them is reportedly a pedophile. And you have nerve to talk about me and what you think that I do? Nicki Minaj.
That's funny. He does. Don Lemon is one of the most egregious people that, if there's any criticism of him, he plays the gay card, right? He says it in this next interview here too. Oh gosh, Lemon. Yeah, here. This particularly angers me.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy, and they think
The Christians of the church are entitled white supremacists. That's racist, right there. Right? He's calling Nicki Minaj a racist. He's a racist.
that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America. And there's a certain
Okay. Let me just say, the criticism of Don Lemon from the right in particular has never been, ever, about the fact that he's gay or black. 0%. No one ever has cared about that, ever. Or mentioned it, as far as I know. The criticism of Don Lemon is about him being racist and being biased back when he was on CNN and then here now. That's literally it. And it's funny to me, like, you watch him here and you can see how entrenched he is with these leftists, right? He's here supporting the protesters as resistance fighters. This guy was the face of CNN for like years. He was supposed to be their unbiased report. Remember when you would call him biased and CNN or unbiased reporters? It was him and Cuomo. I think it was Chris Cuomo. Those were the two guys for CNN. And now you see his true colors. These were the guys that they had as their two main unbiased reporters. But yeah, never about homophobia or racism. That's the easy way out for these guys, right? Always a victim. All right, so that's the stuff. I think that's it on... Well, I mean, there's this guy on Twitter who raises a good point. His name's Luke Rudowski, I guess. He just says here, ask yourself this. If Biden was the president, what would he do to a bunch of groypers and right-wingers if they disrupted a synagogue or a Muslim prayer? Which I think is kind of a good way to view the charges against Don Lemon, right? If this were a group of MAGA people that interrupted a Muslim prayer under Biden, he 100% would have thrown every charge in the book at him. And actually, there was recently in the news a group of, I believe they were right-wingers, who did interrupt a Muslim prayer. And they were hit with, I think, charges under the FACE Act, I believe. Or maybe it was a local Florida act. They were reduced, however, from a felony to misdemeanor charges. So we'll see how that ends up. But yeah, they would have done the same thing. So I give full endorsement for the Attorney General to come after them, just as Biden would have done. Had they not been so crazy about prosecuting political prisoners, the J6 people, prosecuting people that prayed at abortion clinics, I might be a little bit more lenient, right? But as it stands, I think you have to fight fire with fire in this instance. Okay, what else we got going on today? I just have like notes. There's like headings for these. ICE is one heading. This was a good story out of, I believe this was Minnesota. People were complaining there. Every story about ICE is either out of Minnesota or Portland. So